Well, I mean, it doesn't get much uglier than that. The Grizzlies were handed a 134 to 107 beatdown by the hands of the Los Angeles Lakers. And look, there are a lot of takeaways from this game. I know we talked about the Bismack Biyombo Anthony Davis matchup going into the game. LeBron James played in this game. Jaren Jackson Jr. played in this game. And there were some injuries. We got to talk about all that coming up right here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. I want to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me today because we got to talk about this game against the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, it's mostly, if you're familiar with the following along with us every day here on Locked On Grizzlies. When it's a West Coast game, late night game, Joe Mullinax is probably in his bed asleep at this point. So you just stuck with me on today. We'll be back with Joe on tomorrow for tomorrow's episode. But again, Grizzlies, Lakers, first time we've seen these two, play since that playoff series, right? Especially in LA. First game in LA since that 134-107. I mean, since the playoff series last year, but 134-107 was the final score in this game. And quite frankly, I don't know if the final score even does it justice. It does. I mean, you give up 134 points, but it wasn't pretty. So many takeaways from this game stand out to me. Desmond Bane finished with 15 points in about 27 minutes, shot 5 of 10 from the field. We've seen Desmond Bane pretty much get up over 20 shots in most games, but the Lakers did a good job of kind of taking him away. I remember coming into this game, what I said I wanted to see more than anything was the Bismack Biyombo versus Anthony Davis matchup. And, well, didn't really go too well for the Grizzlies. Bismack Biyombo, no points in this game. So he's ended his double-double streak at 2. Not only that, he had 8 boards, 4 assists, 0 of 5 shooting from the field. I think he had 1 block. Had a nice block against Anthony Davis early in the game. I thought, okay, he might, give Anthony Davis a tough time. And then you look up, Anthony Davis, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 of 11 shooting from the field. But here's the kicker, 6 blocks against the Grizzlies. And that's what's really hurt Memphis when they played this Lakers team. It's kind of, why I said it myself. I said it's not LeBron James who's killing the Grizzlies in these Lakers matchups. It's Anthony Davis because of his rim protection. We know the Grizzlies over the tenure of Taylor Jenkins, when they've had Morant in the lineup primarily, but they've been a very good team in terms of scoring points in the paint. Anthony Davis just completely eliminates that and when he sees this team. And the Lakers as a team, as Taylor Jenkins said after the game, the Lakers really emphasized taking away the three-pointer against the Grizzlies. And speaking of the three-pointer, Memphis didn't shoot bad. Like, the Grizzlies made 23s on 53 attempts. But, boy, look, man, I know a lot of you have been telling me. I'm almost close to apologizing to some of y'all, but I'm not going to do it yet because, I mean, the numbers are ugly. And what I'm talking about is the Lakers in this game again. 22 of 35 on three-pointers. The Lakers basically set an NBA record. 22 makes on 35 attempts is the highest three-point field goal percentage by a team with at least 35 attempts in a game in NBA history, basically. Yeah, that stat came from ESPN. They tied a franchise record with 22 three-pointers made, against the Grizzlies. And the 62.9%, 22 of 35, the highest three-point field goal percentage in a game with at least 35 attempts in NBA history. So we've seen, 22 of 43, I think. Dallas or Utah, one of those teams shot 22 of 30, and the other one was like 23 of 46, 23 of 45. Basically, teams are just having their way right now. in terms of the 3-point line. And granted, there are some games mixed in there, and I think Portland, in neither of those games did Portland shoot the ball well from 3-point range. A couple other games mixed in as well, where the Grizzlies kind of shifted and got back on track. But these 3-point numbers are ugly right now. And again, I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. But I feel you. I hear everyone that's complaining about the 3-point defense. I just think this is the third time. This is the third time we've seen the Grizzlies give up 70 points in the first half this season. And that's just unusual for this team. That's not even last season when we were having a similar conversation around this time of the year. We were talking about the 3-point defense having to improve. We weren't talking about teams coming in and just scoring 70 points, in halves against the Grizzlies. So this year is a little bit different from that standpoint. But as much as Taylor Jenkins emphasizes defense, I'm going to wait a little bit longer before I really go in on defense, because I think, as bad as the 3-point defense has been, the offensive issues are of larger concern right now. And those offensive issues kind of showed again, in this game. I mentioned that the Grizzlies made 23 pointers. Got a huge game from Santi Aldama, right? Santi Aldama, 24 points for the Grizzlies off the difference between these two teams was pretty much the aggressiveness and get to the free throw line. Lakers 18-24. The Grizzlies took half as many attempts, 9 of 12. And I know, I'll be the first to say it. Referees in a lot of these Grizzlies games have not been great. The refereeing has not been great. But when we talk about free throw disparities, I don't think most nights when other teams shoot more free throws than the Grizzlies, it's not necessarily just as simple as that team's getting more calls. A lot of teams are just more aggressive. They have more guys who get downhill, get to the free throw line and things like that. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is the one guy on the Grizzlies who's he's really good at drawing contact and getting to the line. But even in this game, no free throw attempts for him. I think that's the second time in 3 games Jaren Jackson Jr. hasn't had a free throw attempt. So, a couple games ago, we know why. It was more of the referees. But still, that's kind of concerning, to me. I think the Grizzlies just, without Ja, when Ja's in the lineup, he's going to attack the rim, and he's going to put the pressure on them, and he's going to get to the free throw line. And then you'd have Ja, you'd have Jaren. But right now, that is an issue. What I took from this is, Anthony Davis, he's tough to stop. And I haven't even really talked about LeBron James yet. So I just want to touch on this real quick because everyone, I think I posted during the game. I said it on X. I said, is it me or LeBron just looks like he has some extra juice? Like he had an extra pep in his step, during this game. And most people kind of agreed, but they were kind of saying, hey, he's playing like Dylan Brooks is still on the team. And I get that people were saying that because, Dylan Brooks did kind of, quote unquote, poke the bear or whatever the case may have been last year during the playoff series. But come on now, we're not too far removed from what really got LeBron kind of ticked off as it pertains to the Grizzlies. Remember 2 seasons ago, that's the real reason LeBron James, when he plays against the Grizzlies, he has that extra pep in his step. 2 seasons ago, and Dylan Brooks was not on the floor during that moment. It was Jaren Jackson Jr., it was Ja Morant, it was Desmond Bane. I think Kyle Anderson was on the floor, and he's not playing, and it was one more guy. But the main 3 guys, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, those guys were on the floor when the sequence about, Desmond Bane saying, we ain't hearing those footsteps, and LeBron was talking about the Grizzlies, talking trash while they were up. He wasn't fine with it. That whole sequence happened, and he ended up like dunking on Jaren Jackson Jr. and all that. Like, I just feel like LeBron there's going to be an extra edge probably for the rest of his career as long as those guys, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Ja, when he returns on the floor for the Grizzlies. And the way why I feel like that, more so than him just saying it, simple. LeBron was considered questionable leading into this game. Actually, to the point where he was a game time decision. About an hour and a half before the game, Darvin Ham met with the media and said that LeBron James would go through his pregame workout and be a game time decision. And then when the game started, he's moving freely and he's going at Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren struggled in this game. We'll talk more about Jaren later, but LeBron was going at him on the offensive end, knocking down shots, attacking him, going to the rim. And I mean, he had a lot of success. I think LeBron had 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. And he only played, 23 minutes. Didn't play the fourth quarter. So he was probably on his way to a triple-double and then some if he would have played the full course of the game. But end of the day, it was an ugly game for the Grizzlies. Memphis shot 37% from the field, 38% on three-pointers, but two-point percentage just was very bad. 20 made threes, 19 made twos. So, again, the Lakers emphasized eliminating the paint with the Grizzlies. We saw that in the playoff series last year, and it worked again to perfection. And the one stat that really sticks out to me like a sore thumb was what I wanted to see the most, and the Lakers won the battle. 54 rebounds for the Lakers, 33 for the Grizzlies. Yes, the Grizzlies got 13 offensive boards, but as Steven Adams likes to say, sometimes you get a lot of offensive boards because you got a lot of missed shots. And in the Grizzlies' case, they had over 60 missed shots in this game, whereas the Lakers only had 34 missed shots with 10 offensive rebounds. So 54 to 33 rebounding advantage by the Lakers, 22 of 35 from three-point range, 58% shooting from the field, while the Grizzlies shot 37%. Just a whole entire recipe for disaster in this game. And just wasn't a good game for the Grizzlies. It was not a good game for the Grizzlies. And one of the reasons why it wasn't a good game for the Grizzlies, injuries, man. More injuries in this game. We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, I got to talk to you about eBay Motors, because eBay Motors is where you go to build your vision part by part. And here's the thing about eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd. He said, what they teamed up with Josh Lloyd for? Well, they're planning to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long, whether you're prepping for a daily draft or you scouting the waiver wire. I know I'm heavily scouting the waiver wire at this time of the season with all these injuries. Every week, we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the week. One guy that stands out to me on his list is none than Grizzlies or Jacob Gilliard. Look, this is his year in a deep league. If you're in a smaller league, he has other guys on there like Skylar Mays. Skylar Mays has played really good basketball with Portland, while Malcolm Brogdon and Scoot Henderson have been hurt. But we're going to talk about Jacob Gilliard because for the deep leagues out there, for the people who play in the leagues, 12 teams more, those big leagues, Gilliard is starting the point guard for the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies have other injuries at point guard right now. Derrick Rose, John Morant suspended. We'll talk about Marcus Smart a little bit later in the show, but Marcus Smart could possibly miss some time as well. This all clears the floor for Jacob Gilliard to be the point guard of the Grizzlies. He's shooting a lot of three-pointers. We know how valuable those are, and he is a strong source for assists. I think Jacob Gilliard is a great option to take advantage of right there. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. You know why? Because it's the same way with your car. I mean, and I know this so well myself because I remember when I was in college, I had my nice 2001 Honda Accord, one of my first cars I ever got. And guess what? I needed a part. And eBay Motors helped me get an alternator for my car. And after that, I was off and running. So it's simple. Look, with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brakes, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. All you got to do is go over to ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only, available to U.S. customers. Eligible items and exclusions may apply. Coming up next on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about the injuries because the Grizzlies got Xavier Tillman back, but a couple other guys went down. So let's talk about it coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. I am Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. And we got to talk about this injury problem that's going on. Because, look, man, if I remember correctly, we were talking about the front court having injury problems just a week or two ago, where it was Santi Aldama. Xavier Tillman was down. Steven Adams, we found out that he wasn't going to be available right before the start of the season. Then you got Brandon Clark on top of it. It was the front court having all the issues where guys, they were having to play small, things like that. But you fast forward in this game, again, we already know John Morant's out. Derrick Rose is week to week right now. Still unclear exactly when he will return, but I will say, he's been warming up before a certain game. I know I saw him at FedEx Forum warming up before the game, just taking some shots and things like that. So I would figure he probably won't be out too much longer, but he's week to week by Taylor Jenkins' designation. So those are your 2 point guards that you have on your standard roster. Then you have Jacob Gilyard, who's on a 2-way deal, by the way, which means he only can be active for 50 of the 82 games. Jacob Gilyard has been active for every single game. Active doesn't mean play. It means on the roster and available to play. He has not been sent on G League assignments, so he's been active. So Jacob Gilyard pretty much has 39 games left, unless you promote him to a standard contract, which means you're going to have to release another guy. And they're already going to have to release someone when John Morant gets back. So you're talking about some real tough decisions that will have to be made around here sooner or later. But Marcus Smart was your next guy, right? Well, Marcus Smart injured his ankle first quarter. I think he contested a shot against Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves ended up trying to throw an alley-oop. Looked like Marcus Smart came down on his foot, twisted his left ankle, and he was down for a while. And if you followed the Grizzlies, if you've listened to me or already on my content, one of the things that stood out to me when I talked to people in Boston about Marcus Smart, they kind of talked about like his pain tolerance. He'd have a sprained ankle and he'd get back on the court immediately, and basically, you kind of forget that he's hurt. Well, in this situation, when Marcus Smart went down, he stayed on the floor. The Grizzlies went back, played offense for a possession. Then they came back up the floor again, played defense for an entire possession until the Lakers scored before the referees finally stopped the time, while Marcus Smart literally sat on the floor for the entirety of those 2 possessions. So the fact that Marcus Smart didn't get up was kind of a little concerning to me. I'm not going to lie. It was a little concerning because Marcus Smart is pretty much as tough as they come, from that perspective. Then there's Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard exited the game in the first half. We found out that he had some, soreness, in his left knee as well. And after the game, Taylor Jenkins said that both players, he said that Luke Kennard was more precautionary, but he's still going to be reevaluated after the game. Same thing with Marcus Smart, except the precautionary part. It's going to be reevaluated, and we'll have an update probably before our next episode on what the long-term status of those 2 may be. But look, Grizzlies got 3 days before the next game. You got Wednesday off. They'll be coming back to Memphis, so I'm sure they'll be back, in Memphis Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and before they head to San Antonio and play the Spurs on the road on Saturday. So you're probably going to get a couple practices in there on Thursday and Friday. They're not practicing today. So with all that being said, you have a chance, like, if these injuries aren't serious, you can get these guys back. But if they are, starting with Marcus Smart, it really hurts your point guard depth because, look, I know we've had the whole conversation about, Marcus Smart is better off the ball and whatnot, and I wholeheartedly agree. But if you go through your options right now, you don't have many. Again, there's no Derrick Rose. There's no John Morant. Jacob Gilyard is, I like his game, but he's a 5'8", 5'9" point guard on a two-way contract. So you can't. There's only so much you can do contractually, with Jacob Gilyard at this point. So the point is, somebody's got to run the point. And I know y'all ain't gonna want to hear this. Some of y'all. There's some John Conchar stands out there. I know my co-host Joe Monax gives me a hard time anytime I mention John Conchar in this perspective, but when you talk about the point guard hierarchy on this team, you got, Ja Morant, you got, Jacob Gilliard and Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose and those guys. But when you get to the other guys who have to move from their standard roles, you think of guys like Desmond Bane, who, again, I think the Grizzlies have found success moving him off the ball a little bit more. Sure, he's going to play on the ball in stretches, but it's better to have him off the ball where you can create that movement. And they're really generating good offense when he plays in that role. That's kind of why, when Jacob Gilliard got elevated to the starting lineup, they had guys like Zaire Williams that they could have put back in the starting lineup, or they had a guy like Luke Kennard that they could have put in the starting lineup. But the emphasis was getting a point guard so you can move Desmond Bane off the ball a little bit more. So the point is, you got Desmond Bane, you got Luke Kennard, you got John Conchar. Those are probably your three guys who are next up in terms of handling the ball if you don't have Marcus Smart, Derrick Rose, and Ja Morant. Behind Jacob Gilliard, of course, because you're going to have Jacob Gilliard for a stretch. So Luke Kennard probably would be the next guy. And actually, we saw in that game, before Luke Kennard left the game, he did do some of the ball handling. But I have not been overly impressed with him in that role. I've actually been more impressed with John Conchar. John Conchar, I know some of you like, what, Damichael? But listen, John Conchar had 6 assists in his last game, 16 minutes against the Lakers. We saw, if you want to see how John Conchar can fare in this role, go look at a 29-point loss from April of 2022 when the Grizzlies played the Boston Celtics. I know, 29-point loss, but you're not looking for any of that. What you're looking for is John Conchar playing the point guard position. In that game, I think he had 10 assists. I think he had another game like that, too, where he had high assist numbers. I think it was against the Phoenix Suns. But the point is, Conchar isn't a perfect option. He isn't a point guard. He's better off the ball. All those guys that I just mentioned are better off the ball. But I'm just stating what I know. These are the guys who are next up because of the injury issues. We'll see what comes from Marcus Smart. We'll see what comes of Luke Kennard. But that's just the situation that the Grizzlies are in right now. And at this point, look, man, you just got to make the most of it because it is what it is for the Memphis Grizzlies right now, man. And Locked On has launched the first ever National Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. So make sure you take advantage of that because it's called Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts and Locked On. Plus, our national shows will be covering every league out there. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel. Streaming 24/7. Locked On Sports Today, man. Y'all got to go take advantage of this. I think this is a great thing that Locked On is doing. But coming up next on Locked On Grizzlies, we got to point out, one of the star players who's been struggling lately, Jaren Jackson Jr. What's going on with Jaren Jackson Jr.? We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, we got to talk about Ibotta. Because guess what? Thanksgiving's coming up, right? And how does free Thanksgiving sound? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make sure that your Thanksgiving table is complete. Because, look, who wants turkey without the gravy? I mean, turkey is great, but we know the best part of Thanksgiving is the sides. And with Ibotta, you can make sure that you get the whole family's favorite side dishes and the turkey, all while getting yourself cash back starting November 1st, right? For the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. All you have to do is just add the offers in the app to the redeem everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and just upload the receipt, and Ibotta will give you cash backs on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Look, man, other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even a gift card. All you got to do right now is download the Ibotta app. That's IBOTTA in the app. And now use the code LOCKED, LOCKED, to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting on November 1st. Just go to the App Store, or you can go to your Google and download the app. It's free. It's a free Ibotta app, and use the code LOCKED. That's LOCKED to take advantage of this opportunity via Ibotta. Coming up on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. because what's really going on with Jaren Jackson Jr.? Talking about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back, everyone, to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee, most beautiful land in the world, as I love to say. But things haven't been too beautiful, around here lately. And I think with the as that pertains to the Grizzlies, it's because Jaren Jackson Jr. is struggling, man. Jaren is struggling. And these struggles, I think there's trends that we're noticing because these are things he's going to have to clean up. This Lakers game, it was the Clippers game, and I'm just going to get into the numbers with you real quick. This is what we've kind of noticed last couple games. Jaren Jackson Jr. against the Utah Jazz, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Against the LA Clippers, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. Against the Lakers, 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, these are straight up role player type numbers that you're getting from an all-star who came into this Lakers game averaging 20 plus points. Like, the thing is, Jaren is having, if you look at the totality of his season, he's having his best year from an offensive standpoint. Defensively, I don't think he's having his best year yet. We just a couple games ago where he didn't have, like, that rarely happens. The last 2 games, he's on block in each of those games. So there's a lot to kind of point out into what's really going on with Jaren Jackson Jr. Man, I gotta start with these field goal attempts. The percentages it's weird. So you go to the couple games ago, Utah Jazz game, the Clippers game. Those games, he combined took 5 3-pointers. Missed all 5, but he only took 5. So cool. Like, get to the basket. The Utah game, 7 of 13, ended up being ejected. He was aggressive. He was fine, but got ejected. The Clippers game and the Lakers game are the 2 that I really want to focus on, and I'm going to take a couple seconds. Against the Clippers, Jaren, 3 of 15 shooting, 0 of 3 on 3-pointers, only 4 boards. Against the Lakers, more of the same for Jaren Jackson Jr. Just straight up, I think he finished with 8 points in this game, 3 of 16 shooting from the field, 2 of 6 on 3-pointers, but 3 of 16 from the field. Jaren Jackson Jr. is 6'11", 250 pounds. 3 of 16. I know you're going against Anthony Davis, LeBron James, but guess what? I'm old enough to remember against those same 2 guys. Go back last season, game 1, playoff series. Jaren Jackson Jr. dropped 30 ball on those dudes. But the problem is what's happened since that 30-point game. What has happened since Jaren Jackson Jr. scored 30 points against the Lakers in game 1, and the Lakers felt like they had to make a defensive adjustment after that because I think LeBron James started off guarding him in that game, and after that they switched Anthony Davis onto him. But here are the numbers. And I shout out to my guy Keith Parrish at Fast Break Breakfast. He pointed this out. He mentioned the Clippers game in here. I already talked about that one, so I'm gonna just look at the LA Lakers games. 4 of 12, 13 points. 5 of 15, 14 points. 3 of 12, 14 points. 3 of 16, 8 points. Those are Jaren Jackson Jr.'s numbers last 4 games against the Los Angeles Lakers. You mix in the Clippers game in there, 3 of 15, 12 points. So basically a bunch of games where he's well under 50% from the field, and he's not scoring more than 14 points. What I've come to notice from those 2 opponents is they are really physical with Jaren Jackson Jr., and they're not going to just let him beat them one-on-one. So with the Lakers in particular, the Lakers do a good job of crowding the paint and basically daring the Grizzlies to shoot. That's why he took 6 3-pointers. Jaren Jackson Jr. took 6 3-pointers. He made 2, but he shot 3 of 16 from the field and couldn't get much inside. We saw Anthony Davis block him a couple times. Talked about Anthony Davis having 6 blocks. A couple of those were against Jaren Jackson Jr. And Jaren just really never looked comfortable. Even when he made his one basket on the inside, it was like a nice spin move off of LeBron James. But he looked like he was almost off balance. Like he had to work really hard to get that basket. It was a nice move, but he had to work hard. So then you go to the Clippers. The Clippers, yes, they play small a lot. We saw it again that game yesterday against the Denver Nuggets. They ended the game playing small against Jokic of all people, which hardly ever works for anybody. But still, they tried the small thing against the reigning, well, not the reigning, but two-time MVP or whatever, and it didn't work. But against Jaren Jackson Jr., the Clippers did a good job of crowding him. I know we saw Kawhi Leonard guarding him. We saw Paul George get a steal, force turnover against him. And what those teams, what the Lakers and Clippers both do a good job, physical. They know they match Jaren's physicality, and they don't just let him, pound him into the paint one-on-one. For one, those guys are all strong. Like, they're smaller wings compared to Jaren's size, but Kawhi Leonard is one of the strongest wings in the NBA. Paul George, is very good with his hands, and he's going to get steals. Like, he's very good with his hands. And then with the Lakers, LeBron James has been one of the strongest players since he's been in the league. Anthony Davis is one of the best defensive players. And those teams both do a really good job of being physical with Jaren Jackson Jr. There was something that Brevin Knight pointed out as well. Shout out to Brevin, our guy, with Valley Sports during the game. He was talking about Jaren pretty much going to the same move over and over and over. And we know when he gets to the rim, he tries to do that long stride with the two steps. And what it does is when he takes that long stride, you're not planting your feet and giving yourself a chance to, like Ja Morant, for example. You don't see Ja Morant doing those long, two-strided steps that often because it's hard to create elevation when you do that. That's what Brevin pointed out. And since Jaren is not creating elevation, yes, he's 6'11", but he's not 6'11" when he's going to the rim. He's basically, making himself smaller. Anthony Davis is able to just swat the basketball so easily, or LeBron James is able to easily contest shots because Jaren is making himself smaller when he's going against these physical defenses that aren't just they aren't going to make it easy for him to just get to whatever spot he wants to get to and shoot that left-handed or right-handed hook. They're going to make him work for it. So I think now we know what the next evolution of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s game is. Sure, he's taken a step forward in terms of being aggressive and knowing when and who to attack. But it's a game against these type teams where he hasn't been productive. And the sample size is big enough now to where we gotta point it out. Because at the end of the day, these are the type of teams you're going to see in the postseason. I even think of, a team like the Nuggets. They got a guy like Aaron Gordon who's kind of the same mode of defender as those guys that we just mentioned. So this is something that Jaren's going to have to work on. He's going to have to fix. He's going to have to be really physical, and he's going to have to match the physicality of those teams, right? Like, that's something that Dylan Brooks, when he was in Memphis, he talked to Jaren about a lot, being that dog and the physicality of opponents and things like that. So we'll see where Jaren goes from here in that area, but it is definitely worth pointing out. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies on today. Make sure you continue to tune in to Locked On Grizzlies because on tomorrow, me and Joe Mullinax will be back with you, and we're going to talk about a lot of the things going on around the Grizzlies and the team right now. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. A lot to uncover. Remember, the Grizzlies got a few off days. So we'll have some practice updates, which means injury updates and what's going on with some of the key players who are missing right now. We're going to have injury updates on those guys: Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard, and the list goes on. Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to have you covered with any and everything that's going on around the team. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. But thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. And remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.